Thank you. I mean, you know, it will be all in English. I wanted to thank ISPI for hosting this event, which is, I think, a great opportunity to be able to talk with Eshkol Nevo, who's one of, as you know, I suppose, since looking at you, he's one of the most famous writers in Italy from Israel. And I just wanted to point out that after this event, he'll be at your disposal for signing the books that you have seen before you came in. And now let us start. I'll start from the title that ISPI gave to this meeting, Writing in Conflict. So, what does it mean to be an Israeli writer? Because Israel, I mean, it is, since it's been born, it is in conflict. And you are probably one of the first writers, your generation, where the conflict is not always in the books. It's not, you don't write about the conflicts, but how does the conflict enter?
Buonasera a tutti. You asked about Israel, but first I want to talk about Italy. You know, I love Italy, but there's a problem with your country. Every time I come to an event in Italy, I tell the audience, look, this is the most beautiful place I've been to. And then again I say at the next place I come, this is the most beautiful place, the most beautiful city. But tonight I must confess, this is the most beautiful venue. It's like breathtaking. I'm half listening to your questions and half following the paintings. Okay, coming back to...
Yeah, that is the soft power of Italy, and we can always distract with beauty.
Exactly. Yeah, beauty can be, can cure you. This is what I discovered. You know what, let's talk about this for a minute. Israel is going through a very hard time. It's not a theoretical conflict, it's now war, and people are dying and people are suffering in Israel, in Gaza, in Lebanon. And it's hard emotionally to go through these times without breathing for once in a while. And you talked about the beauty and the distraction power to take your mind off troubles, but I think it's deeper than that. For me, beauty, the beauty of Italy, the beauty of art, the beauty of people, it's not only to take your mind off troubles, it's sometimes it can really cure you. It can remind you the most important things in life. So for me, visiting in Italy is a good way to get inspiration, to breathe a little bit, and then to come back to my own country with more power to face the issues that we are facing. So I'm really thankful for this opportunity for once in a while to come to Italy, to look at things from a different perspective, to experience life through different eyes, to get new questions, and then I can enrich myself. Coming back to your original questions, it's funny, you know, I'm used to have events with translation. I think it's my first event in English without translations for a decade. So I almost stopped and waited for the translator to perform, but I don't need to do that. That's amazing. So, conflitti. I think I'm fascinated. I was always fascinated since my first novel, since Nostalgia. Nostalgia was called originally in my computer osmosis, which is a chemical process in which a material enters the cell, diffuses into the cell. Now, I'm not interested in chemistry, but I'm interested in the way public events and political events and political conflicts, war, violence, in what way do they shape our legami, our relationships? In what way do they affect the family, parents, children, love relationship? Even take an event like COVID, like the pandemic. In what way COVID changed relationships within the most intimate moments of our lives? I think this is what I'm fascinated about. So you may feel it in my book. Sometimes it's extremely evident that the conflict is there, but sometimes it's the osmosis going on. Something is affecting the characters. Maybe we can feel it in a subliminal way, but it's there all the time. I don't think I have a book without this question of in what way does reality around us shape our personal issues and questions.
And I found that your characters, they change, they go through, the reality changes them, and then they have to find surprisingly strength in themselves, or through opening up to love, desire, and that makes them overcome. So is that, did I see that right, or how?
Change is a central element of a story. If there is no change, there is no story. One of the ways I look at the texts of my students at the creative writing school, if you want to get accepted to the creative writing school, the Israeli Schola Holden, you have to send a text. And what I'm looking for when people send the text and I want to decide whether they are fit to our program or not, I'm looking for their ability to describe a change. Because if you can describe a change, you can tell a story. And I think I've been writing stories for so long, I'm thinking about life in that sense. I'm thinking about the possibility of change. For me, is always open.
So in a way, living in Israel is a great story, because in Israel, where conflict is in every personal life, reality, you can't not see it. In a way, it gives you also great stories, great opportunities that are probably not there in other places. So in this sense, I do feel that you're a very Israeli writer.
Definitely. Israel is no paradise. Sometimes it can be hell, but it's a paradise for storytellers. Only if you are looking for a conflict in my country, you just have to raise your head and the conflict is there. It's walking in the last night was a celebration in Israel which is called Purim. It's like maybe Halloween is the equivalent, because you wear costumes and there are parties in the streets, and everyone is going to Jerusalem because Jerusalem is the center of celebrations. Now, there are so many conflicts going on during this day because people were trying to celebrate, but they're also worried and sad because we have hostages still in the tunnels in Gaza. We have a war going on. We have suffering all around us. So you have this inner conflict. Can I be happy? Can I party or not? And then when I took the train to Jerusalem, it's a public train, so I'm sitting here, and on the other side of me, this ultra-Orthodox woman. Imagine a woman dressed until you cannot see anything but her face. Everything is covered because she's ultra-Orthodox. But it's a public train. She cannot choose who is she sitting near to. So near to her is this extremely liberal student, 24 years old, wearing a skirt which is shorter than a skirt. And they are sitting next to each other, and I'm looking at it, and at about the same age, by the way, because the ultra-Orthodox woman who was around 24 herself had already 5 children going around her, and a very annoying husband not doing nothing all the ride. And ultra-Orthodox himself also. So this woman is 24 and this woman is 24, and their lifestyles are so different from each other. They are both going to Jerusalem, but not for the same purpose, and they are from the same country. So conflicts are all around us.
Yeah,
in
that
Israel.
is, I mean, I love very much Tel Aviv, where you have got, on one side, you have got Gay Beach. Then there are some clots that divide them from the ultra-Orthodox beach, where women can go on one day and men on the other. And I think that's also the richness of Israel. And do you think that it will keep on being a place where you can find both sides, all the sides?
I'm kind of torn between two emotions, because I'm optimistic by nature. I believe in the possibility of change. I love my country. I believe that there is hope, that peace can be achieved. But I'm also worried about my country, because a constant state of war, of conflict, of aggressive life has its effect on the soul. Like we mentioned before, the osmosis, the way sometimes it's very, very subtle, and sometimes it's very evident. Like last night in the train, when people came out of the train, they started singing songs, and basically they were holiday songs, and I wanted to join them. Half religious, half secular, everyone was kind of singing, but then at one moment they changed. There was a group of young people, and they started singing a very, I would call it a war song, okay? Not to be too specific, but it was a war song. It was an anti-song. It was a kind of a celebration of war. And I could not sing with them, because for me war is never a celebration. It's never a celebration. It's always a thing you want to prevent. So, and half of the people joined them, and half of the people stopped singing, and I felt, yeah, this is what we are facing. If we will go on with this, not solving the conflict, there is a price we are paying. Young people are growing up in this atmosphere, and it affects their soul. It changes them, and they stopped believing in the possibility of peace. They stopped believing that life without war is possible. And this is, I'm extremely worried about that. So I'm optimistic and worried in a way.
In your books, I mean, you often, go deep into people's soul and how they close up and how they open up towards other people. Now, this conflict, will it change the way you write? Because, like you said before, you're interested in the osmosis, and there's quite a lot that has been happening in the past 80 years of Israel's life. But this is probably the longest, the most cruel conflict ever. And I read something, you have been writing a diary for Corriere della Sera. So I will read it in Italian, because otherwise I have to retranslate it into English. I will get mixed up with all the languages.
Quasi capisco
ormai.
tutto, tutti.
Allora, and you wrote this is when Oded Lifshitz, he was 83, he came back. You probably know him. He was very famous because he was one of the oldest people to be taken by Hamas as a hostage, and he was a pacifist. He spoke Arabic, and he came back dead. And at a certain point here you write, noi saremo come il pianoforte o come il giardino di cactus, mi domando. Saremo capaci di ripristinare I ponti di fiducia tra esseri umani, nonostante quanto abbiamo visto nell'ultimo anno. Shall I translate for you?
No, I understand.
Okay.
Would we be like the piano, like the cactus garden?
Yeah.
The piano was burned and ruined, and the cactus garden we were able to kind of to make it alive again.
Now, writing for you has also, in these letters that you wrote for Corriere, I had the idea that it was like a healing effect. How will this change, and how will it come in your work, in your creative work?
La scrittura in tempo di conflitti. I saw the title and I thought to myself that the last conflict, this one, changed my writing because I stopped writing fiction. I could not write fiction for more than a year because reality was so crazy. And things that were happening around me were so extreme that it seemed ridiculous to write fiction. Like, why should I do that? And instead I started documenting the experiences I'm having as a, I would call it a therapeutic writer, because I've been meeting throughout this year with many groups of people that are suffering, either soldiers or wounded soldiers, or citizens that had to leave their homes in the Gaza envelope, or brothers and sisters of soldiers who were killed, or a group of friends of a soldier that was killed. And they all wanted to meet with me. Sometimes they wanted me to read them a story, just read us a story, a healing, like you mentioned before, the healing powers of art. Sometimes they wanted to write. They wanted me to facilitate their writing, to give them an exercise, to listen to them. So I started wandering around the country and becoming this therapeutic or therapist writer, and documenting all these experiences and writing about them. And I studied psychology in university, but I never became a psychologist. So I had no training for these experiences, and I faced a lot of pain and a lot of suffering, and I could not deal with that without writing about it. So it was also for me important. In a way, this diario that I'm writing to Corriere della Sera is a salvation for me. I know that every 2 or 3 weeks I send them a chapter. In a way, it was the only words I could find to describe what I feel. And they had to be non-fiction. As a fiction writer, sometimes I was tempted, because I'm so used to telling good stories, to adding details, to lying. But no, this is a non-fiction column. I want to tell the truth about what is happening emotionally in my country. So I did not lie even once. And it's hard for a professional liar like me. And I really kind of stuck to the truth. I kind of remained with the truth, and the truth was so crazy, I just had to write about it. So
it was
the
therapeutical
Scrittore,
also for you.
it was definitely therapeutical for me. I had to write this column, even if Corriere della Sera would say stop. I would continue writing this diary, because I need to understand what I am going through, what is my family going through, my friends. I was, in the 7th of October, I was in Italy. I was in Turin. And people in Israel told me, my friends told me, don't come back. Don't come back. Stay in Italy. It's better. And I didn't know why. Why are they telling this, saying this? But I had to come back. This is my community, my students, my people. My daughter was in the army. She wanted me to come back. So I came back, and the first week I came back, I realized that everyone around me is post-traumatic. Everyone, not only the soldiers or the citizens that they had to leave their homes, or the people that lost their loved ones, but everyone is post-traumatic, and some healing had to be done. So this is what I've been doing the last year and a half. Definitely changed my writing. I focused on non-fiction, and even now that I'm writing something different, not about the war, but still it's non-fiction. Let's see. I don't know. You asked about the future, and I don't know. First, I think I really want this war to end. Yeah. It has been going for too long, and it should end, and it's possible to end it, and we need to compromise, the Palestinians need to compromise, the mediators have to work harder, and we have to end this war. And then you can ask me this question about my future writing again. For now, it's really hard to imagine things when you are surviving.
Yeah, I mean, the whole country is in a survival mood. Tell me, it struck me that you chose stories for healing, for these soldiers, people who lost their loved ones, who came to you in post-traumatic stress and they wanted that you would read them a story. What stories would you choose to heal?
What a beautiful question. Also, because we don't have a translator here and we don't have to stop all the time, I feel like we're having a real conversation.
Yes.
Yeah, that's so nice. So I'll answer with a real answer. It's quite a dilemma, because when I go to a group of wounded soldiers, I never read in front of an audience that was so in pain. You can see the pain on their faces. They were full of pain. And I had a story in mind when I came to the hospital, but then I looked at them and I sensed the pain. And I thought to myself, I cannot read them what I plan to read because this is too painful. I must read something which is more soft and healing. But there's another issue. If you are denying pain, if you would read a group of people that are suffering or suffered, or they faced violence, if you will read them and try to entertain them with ridiculous stories, they would feel that you are not respecting their pain. So you have, in a way, you have to go through pain to recognize it, but not to make it harder. And it's a real moment of choice. I was thinking a lot before choosing the stories to read this year. I read a story from Legami, which is called Escape Room. So for those of you who haven't read the story, I would tell you the story in English. So basically we are in an escape room, and there's this guy who is around 70, and he enters the escape room with his grandchildren and with his wife. And the operator of the escape room is young, he's 25 years old, and he sees this family through the video screen. And at one moment, this 70 years old man, he starts shouting, "Let me out, let me out. I can't stay here." And then, okay, he opens the escape room and he lets him out. The grandmother and the grandchildren, they want to continue with the escape room, but this man is out of the escape room and he's completely shaking and he's not in a good situation. And then this young operator, he offers him a cup of tea. And then they start talking. And he asks him, what happened to you? Or like, why were you so... why did you have this anxiety attack? And he said, look, I was actually a prisoner. Between 1970 and 1974, I was in the Egyptian jail because I was caught by Egyptian forces as an Israeli pilot. And I spent 4 years in jail. And then he tells him a real story, which is known in Israeli culture, but I guess for you it maybe will be new. This group of pilots that spent 4 years in jail, in order to survive this very challenging time, they decided to translate together from English to Hebrew The Hobbit. The Hobbit is the first book before The Lord of the Rings. You know, of course, you know. If you haven't read the book, maybe you saw the movie. So they did it, this group of pilots, they did it together. Imagine the picture, in jail, now Egyptian jail, it's not 5 stars, it's not the White Lotus. It's hard, and they are striving to be creative to cooperate because everyone had a different role in this group. And eventually they printed out, they were able to finish the first ever translation of Tolkien to Hebrew. This is an amazing story. You can find it in Wikipedia. And he's telling this to this young operator. And of course, it's a story that gives you hope about the ability of people to go through hard times together and with creativity. And then the operator tells him, you know what, you seem like a nice old man. Can you give me an advice about love? And the man says, yes, of course, tell me, what's the situation with your girlfriend? He says, well, I'm dating this girl, and I'm so in love with her, but I don't know if she's into it or not. Like, I don't know if I can kiss her or not. I don't know. I feel that maybe yes, but I don't know, maybe not. What should I do? And then this man tells the young man, he tells him, you know what? Patience. Patience. Give her time. Every person in the world has his own rhythm. Most of the mistakes we make in relationships are not listening to the rhythm of the other. Listen to her rhythm, respect her rhythm, and then you will be able to be with her. And this, I think, was another reason I read this story to people that were traumatic or suffering in my country, because we had, in this year, we had to be patient. We had to go through this process. We had to look to the past to find hope based on what happened in the past, and also imagine a future, like what would be a future without a war. So if you are patient, if you are able to imagine, to be creative, it can help you. And this is why I chose this story, and I read it again and again and again and again to many groups of people I met.
And it worked, I suppose.
Yes, usually it worked. Sometimes I met with people that wanted to write. Now, for instance, you meet with people, I met with a group of women who were in the Gaza envelope in the 7th of October. They were evacuated to a hotel near Tel Aviv. First, it was a workshop, 3 meetings, and after the first meeting, I asked the group, can I give you homework? And there was a strange silence, and one of them said, no, you can't give us homework because we don't have a home. Mm. And then the question I had as a writing teacher, as a facilitator, was, in what moment in this workshop will I ask them to write about the 7th of October? I felt that I cannot do it in the first meeting. They don't know each other, they don't know me. Why should they trust me with this pain? And also, am I able to listen to this in the first meeting? So I decided not to touch it in the first meeting, and then not to touch it in the second meeting, and then came the third meeting, which was the last. And I asked them to write about this specific Saturday, but I asked them to do it in a very specific way. Please start with something which is not dramatic, just a small element of that Saturday. And one of the women wrote about the birds singing, and one about the last phone call she had with her husband, and one wrote about making a salad before everything started. And after this group of women read the texts, and everyone was crying, because these women, each one of them lost someone, a husband, a brother, a son. So everyone was crying, and I was crying. And then I felt I can't finish the workshop like this. I can't let them, send them to their non-home with crying. So I asked them, can we write a poem together about the spring? It was winter, around December. And I asked every participant to write a line beginning with the words, "In the spring, I will," and continue. And I wasn't sure that they will be able to do it, because they are so in the present. and in the past. Yeah. And there was this silence, and I thought to myself, maybe it was asking too much. But then the first one started writing, and then the second one, and then at the end we had this beautiful poem on the wall, made out of their lines, and this is how we ended the workshop. So I guess you have to go through the pain, acknowledge the pain, and but also let's talk about hope. Let's write about hope. Let's not remain in the circle of pain, but also imagine a different kind of future.
So words and creativity loosens up the knots that that we carry inside through trauma or what happened. Now I'll ask you the difficult question, because this one, it's more than a year, and the whole of Israel, I mean, is under trauma. So are the Palestinians. Have you connected with them? Because probably they would need also workshop, and probably that would be a creative way of bridging it over.
I'm not sure the Palestinians in Gaza want my workshop right now, but if I was asked by Palestinians to do a workshop, I would of course agree. I would never say no to an offer of bridging, of listening, of empathy. I think this is what artists are about. We have in Israel, Arab Israelis, so my creative writing school, the Israeli Scholar Holden, we work a lot with Arab Israelis, and we try to find a way to bridge and to connect and to be empathetic, and I think this is what we can do as artists.
And does it work even now?
It's in a way, it's of course harder, but it's also more significant to be empathetic, non-violent, and hopeful now in Israel is a political statement. It's going against the stream in a way, and so
How difficult is it? Because once you described yourself that as a writer, you said as a liar, professional liar, you empathize. And when you write about a woman, you become a woman. When you write about a man, you become that man. So empathy is now a political statement. How do you relate to that? Because it is quite something to say.
La Simmetria dei Desideri was published again in Italy now and also in Israel. And in La Simmetria dei Desideri, there's a scene in which Israeli soldiers are entering a Palestinian family's house during the Intifada in the 1990, and they want to see a World Cup game, and they are completely ruining the house because they want to see this game. And I had an interview, and the journalist asked me, well, don't you feel that publishing this kind of scene now and with empathy towards Palestinians, is it problematic nowadays? And I said, oh, it's not problematic. Empathy is not dependent on time. It's a basic human thing that we do. We empathize, we can understand. We can understand our enemy. We can understand and feel other people. I think I want to be like that. I want my students to be like that. I cannot empathize with cruel things that were done in the 7th of October. I do not have empathy for cruelty. But I can empathize with the suffering of people which are not Israelis. I can see the suffering, I can acknowledge the suffering. It's a basic human thing that you do. And it's dangerous to stop doing that.
Yeah, you write in one of your diaries for Corriere della Sera how you have to bring your daughter for the military service, and that is emotionally, it really caught you. And that is probably what many Israelis feel.
Yeah. I miss her a lot. I have two daughters in the army. One is non-combat, and the other is, the younger is combat. She went into this combat course, and you hardly see them. This is the first problem is that you hardly see them. She comes home once in 3 weeks. They're not allowed to have a cellular phone. So I miss her a lot. So when you asked the question, I had her image in my mind, and I'm writing her lungo WhatsApps, and because sometimes at the night they get like half an hour to read WhatsApps. So I write her long letters, and sometimes she reacts with short answers. I wrote her this lungo email last weekend. Like, I'm talking about 5 pages. And then I get this, "Thank you, Dad." With a heart, like an emoji of a heart. Okay, I did what I had to do, yeah. So, so first of all, I miss her a lot. And then, of course, I worry about her because she's carrying a gun. My daughter is carrying a gun. And when she comes home, I'm sitting with her at our favorite coffee shop, and she tells me, "Look, Father, you have to know that if something happens around us, some kind of a terror act, I will have to intervene." And of course, as a father, I want to tell her, "No, you have to hide in the toilet." She said, "No, but this is my responsibility." So it's very, I'm writing about it in the Dialogo, that I asked her, like, why do you want to be a combat soldier? This is not, it didn't come from your parents, this kind of tendency. And she said, "Well, Father, you took me to demonstrations against the government, and you told me that this is because you love our country. You are going to these demonstrations," and she's the one that went with me to the demonstrations about democracy, about our corrupted government, and I would tell her, we love our country, and because of that we are demonstrating, because we care about our country. And then she tells me, "Okay, so Father, are you surprised? You taught me that I am attached to this place, and now this place needs me to defend it. Now, how can I argue with this argument?" Now I only wish her to come, safely home, and every time she complains about, she sometimes they're not allowed to complain in the combat army. But sometimes she complains about a pain in her knee or in her ankle, and I think to myself, yeah, okay, very good. May the pain be harder, and maybe they let you off this. Maybe they let you go home. I'm a father. I just want her to be safe home, and I'm also afraid about her soul.
That's what I wanted to ask you.
Yes.
How is it going to change young people?
It is changing. It is already changing. The younger generation are much more racist, are much more hopeless, are kind of born into this war in a way and shaped by it, and I'm worried about it. This, in a way, what we are doing in the writing workshops, in our project, in our school, is trying to, in a way, to give a balance to that, to remind people that there is beauty in life, there is empathy, there is tolerance. It hasn't disappeared just because we have a war. I'm facing it with my students. I also facing it with my own daughters, to remind them that the fact that the taxi driver is Arabic does not mean that they have to be afraid. It's hard to convince them, but I do not want to agree to this kind of thinking, that the fact that a person is an Arabic or not defines him.
But so disclosure, you feel this, that there is, of
yes,
course,
there is an effect.
There is a great effect.
Of course there is. This is the osmosis I'm talking about. This is one of the reasons we have to finish the war, because we are paying this price.
Let's say we boomers, we are the ones who probably get it less, because the young ones, they're the ones who also have to go to combat. And then I wanted to ask you, I mean, you saw what is happening, for instance, what happened in many US universities. This war is also bringing out lots of resentment towards Israeli government that then translates into resentment towards the Jewish people and becomes also anti-Semitism. So there's a fine line there. And how do you as a writer, as a creative writer, try and intervene and change this kind of pattern that sort of brings the world apart, in other words?
Today, on the flight to Israel, from Israel to Milano, near me sat two brothers. They really looked the same, so I understood that they are brothers, and I took out my laptop and I started writing, and they asked me, what do you do? I said, I'm a writer, and said, what do you do? And we started this conversation, and they asked me, how often do you come to Italy? And I answered, I come to Italy so much that sometimes I feel that the immigration officer looking at my passport would say, oh no, not you again. And so they asked me, these guys, these brothers, it's their first time in Italy, and they say, the first question they ask is not where to go in Milano, how far is the Como Lake from Milano. No, their first question was, is there anti-Semitism and anti-Israeli in the streets of Italy? Should we be afraid? And I said, no, I'm here all year long. I have faced difficult questions, and it's okay to ask questions. It's okay to criticize Israel, and it's okay to challenge the Israeli policy and definitely the Israeli government, who I oppose myself. But I told these people, you don't have to be afraid. You should feel confident. I think people in Italy see the complexity of the situation, and they are knowledgeable. Many people in Italy have visited in Israel, have connections with Israel. They know the complexity of the situation, and they talk based on knowledge. I can face every question that is based on knowledge. I find it harder to accept people who are identifying with Hamas out of ignorance. And this is not acceptable, and definitely not leading to anything positive. So my way of dealing with these sentiments would be facing the questions, being open to the possibility that I'm wrong, that my country is wrong, and not giving up on the possibility of dialogue.
Well, here, always in Corriere della Sera, Repubblica, they published a poem by Grossman. And he said, he's basically said, I can't write, because I feel that there is hatred everywhere. So the only thing is that I could come up with a poem, with a very angry and, full of pain. That is probably another aspect of this war, and how you found stories that sort of soften up the hearts. But is it possible that, some hearts don't get softened? What Grossman wrote, it struck me very much, that he was sort of not giving any hope.
Look, he also lost a son in a war. You can't forget that. And I'm sure that for him, this war is in a way reliving this loss. I'm not a friend of him, but I look at him and I see him the last year, and I think I can sense that. So I cannot, I can definitely understand why is he feeling like this. I don't feel like that. I feel that this last year has been horrible, but it's also have been a year where I discovered la potenza della scrittura, like the power of writing and literature to soften, to connect, to bridge, to heal. I have been experiencing awful moments, but also wonderful moments in which people are there for each other, supporting with each other. I give you one soft moment. I was invited by Shira, which is a friend of mine, and a mother of Iftach Yavetz, who was killed in the 7th of October. He died, and I knew him as a child. And we worked together, Shira and me, and he used to come with her to work, and when she would go into a meeting, she would ask me to keep an eye on him. And it was devastating to hear that he died. And after he died, his mother asked me to come and talk with his friends, because they all liked, and he liked, La Simetria de Desideri. And I thought to myself, well, this is a very strange thing, but of course I wouldn't say no to Shira, so I came to this group of friends, and we sat at Shira's house, at the mother's house, and we talked about him, about Iftach, through the book, and also not through the book, just through their memories. Mainly, I listened a lot. And only at the end of the event, I realized that the real purpose of everything here was not talking about the book, and not talking about, even not me getting the friends together. The friends wanted to be there for their mother. They are not leaving the mother. They are supporting her, she told me that they are coming there every Friday night, every Friday dinner, the friends of the friends. They are supporting this support net, which is so beautiful. And only at the end of this meeting, I realized that everyone here is actually supporting Shira, is actually supporting the mother, which is, of course, suffering the most, because she lost her loved son, her first son. They had this beautiful relationship, very loving relationship, mother-son loving relationship. And so there are moments like that happening all the time between people, helping each other and being there for each other, and also being empathetic and being able to see the other side. I see this, and I see what Grossman sees. I see both things. I think life is made out of both of them.
What strikes me, of course, these moments where through pain one discovers the power of empathy and also of helping, of creating a group. This I've felt a lot in Israel. I mean, you've been demonstrating against Netanyahu since, I think, more than a year, because the demonstrations were before the war, and to continue during the war, and they still do. And so there is a strong, strong bond that you were able to create, even with people on the square, where now it's called Hostage Square, but before it was against Netanyahu. This bond, which is a positive value that comes out of the tragedy, do you think it will hold on?
The bond of demonstrators is really special, but you know what's even more special? That is the bond between people that think differently. The possibility of Israelis that do not agree on political issues to get and support each other, even that they do not agree. You can have a Netanyahu supporter and a anti-Netanyahu demonstrator being together at the first days of the war, helping each other, bringing food to the soldiers, to people to wives that their husbands are in the military service. So these are the moments of hope for me also, to see people able. I think one of the problems with our prime minister is that he derives his strength out of creating inner conflicts within the Israeli society. He is an expert in that. And the fact that even though he is the prime minister for almost 15 years now, he is the only leader. For the generation of my daughters, they think of him as the only leader possible. And even though that we have this conflict, this kind of a conflict promoter as a leader, even though we are still able as a society to survive that and to find connection to each other and to find understanding with each other. So he was not able, even though he's doing it for 15 years, to get us apart from each other and to create this kind of a inner war that is he profits from. But he's not able to do that. And for me, it's very hopeful to look at that.
I was looking at the watch. I think that it's, I would keep on chatting and talking and asking you questions, but probably you have got some questions also, because afterwards there is also the book signing. So I don't know how you are organized. I mean, if there are any questions from the audience, I think Eshkol will be happy. Please.
Yes, I love questions from the audience. Feel free. You can ask in Italian and we will translate.
Yeah, I'll translate.
I sort of got the impression that you might be schizophrenic. On one side, you clearly protest, you clearly analyze the politics, and I suppose you have your personal ideas on how to solve the problems. On the other side, as an artist, you help people to live with conflicts. In writing, as an artist, do you ever feel the temptation to connect the two things more and sort of write in a more political ideas, more aggressive ideas, more?
No, it's a good question. I feel that these things are not schizophrenic, as you describe them. I think that they go really well together because they both come out of deep care to my country. Sometimes I will demonstrate that care in writing a political article, which can be extremely angry, and I do that. Sometimes I will go to a demonstration and I would speak in front of many people, and I would call for the resignation of the government and the prime minister, because I feel that this is the most important thing to do right now. The last year I felt that the most important thing that I can do as a writer, as an artist, is not talking in demonstrations or writing political articles. I felt that this would be useless. I felt that it's more important for me now to be with the people, to care for them, to use my abilities as a writer and as a creative writing teacher to cure and to heal. Will it last forever, this sensation or this feeling, this tendency? I don't know. It's already changing in the last couple of weeks. It's already changing. But I wish my desiderio, my wish. Desideri is the plural and the desiderio is the, okay. So my desiderio for myself would be that I will be always able to make the right decision on the question of what is the most important thing for me, the most meaningful thing that I can do as an artist. I hope that I will be able to do that also in the future.
Best wishes.
Oh, thank you.
Any other question? Yes,
Yeah,
please.
yeah.
Yeah, good. I don't know if there are microphones. Yeah, there are.
Hi. Not to play too much devil's advocate, but on the flip side, should we dream of a world where there is nothing to fight for because every necessity that ever made us suffer has been conquered or taken over by artificial intelligence? Thank you.
Wow. Can you repeat the question? Should we dream of a world?
I mean, is that what you would want, or we didn't get that?
Yes, let's say for a scenario in which, a scenario in which there is nothing to fight for because every necessity, such as hunger or health or education or wealth in general, has been achieved, and basically there's nothing to fight for because there's nothing left to conquer, or things have been taken over, let's say, by artificial intelligence.
So a dystopian world where AI
You did a magnificent combination of utopia and dystopia. It's kind of, yeah, should we dream of a world without war? Of course. Should we dream of a world ruled by artificial intelligence? I don't know. I think there's a difference between the two visions that you had. I will talk a little bit about artificial intelligence. I'll tell you two stories about it. One of my students, my creative writing students, did a trick. He brought to the class a text for group discussion that was written by ChatGPT, by artificial intelligence. But he did not tell us that it was written by AI. And we had a group discussion on the text, like it is a text written by a real person. And guess what was the remark that came again and again and again from the group? They said, not knowing that it's an AI text, they said, well, the technique is okay, the structure is interesting, the story is kind of okay, fascinating, but something is missing, a heart. Yeah. And the other story is a bit embarrassing. Someone sent me, a student of mine sent me a text. He asked AI, or the ChatGPT, can you please write me an Eshkol Nevo paragraph? And he sent me the result. Now, it was awful. Now, either the AI is really bad, or maybe it's me.
I have not yet fed it too much Eshkol Nevo.
Yeah, yeah. But so I don't know. I feel that when it comes to art, still a lot. AI has a lot to learn, I guess. And maybe I will also refer to an element in your question that I felt. Craving or having a wish is part of being a human being, I think. I myself cannot live without a crave. I follow my cravings, I follow my desideri, I follow my wishes, my visions. I think living without a vision is maybe or without a desideri is like the closest definition of depression. And so I don't wish us a society without craving, but I definitely would join you in this utopia of society without war, for sure. More questions?
Yeah, is there? Oh, yes, please.
I have this question. We from the Israeli writers, we always had a good message. At least I think they are good message. And not only from them, we have a good message from part of the population of Israel. From the Palestinian, I'm really very worried and very also somehow surprised that there is no voice against Hamas. There is no voice against what happened. There is not, even from educated people, I think that part of them are educated. They had university, they are abroad. And so really, I am not informed enough, or maybe it's true what I'm saying. I would like to know your opinion.
I think what gives me hope is the fact that, many people do not know that, but actually there are two Palestinian entities. You say the word Palestinian, but actually they are divided to two. One is the Palestinian Hamas entity in Gaza, and the other is the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank. Now, the fact that the Palestinian Authority is not participating in this violence, is not supporting this violence, has not supported the 7th of October in any way, it gives me a lot of hope. So I believe that there are partners in Palestinian, not Hamas. You cannot do a peace with people like that, but I believe, I strongly believe that there are partners in the Palestinian side that we can make peace with and we can solve the conflict with. And this is what I have to say regarding your question.
Why we didn't hear any condemn of what it happened?
As I said, I don't know, and I don't want to analyze their tendency to condemn or not, but for me, it gives me hope to see, and it's a choice. It's a choice they are making for many years now. The West Bank Palestinians and the West Bank authorities are making a non-violent choice, generally speaking, and it gives me hope, because this is the only way to solve the conflict. Violence would not lead to anything but to more violence.
Before, I wanted just to point out something for the lady that just spoke. In the West Bank at the moment, there is no strong personality that could in any way, let's say, speak for anyone. And that's one of the main reasons why the political slice of the area is so weak. And let's say there is no strong human being that can take a point in the situation. Now my question, I hope I will be as clear as possible. You said that the today's generation is more used to war than what it used to be maybe in the past, but Israelis generations have always experienced war, like Syria, Egypt, Lebanon, like there always been something going on. So everyone has experienced losses and grief and pain, and you said that you worked a lot with pain and how you notice that people are able to empathize with pain. And it doesn't matter where pain is coming from. As human beings, we should, and we are usually able to feel pain and be sympathetic with respect to other people's pain. As the example of, as you pointed out, the example of the woman that lost the child. That being said, from what I remember, the main, let's say, manifestations against the current government were not for stopping the war, were against the fact that the government was not able to bring the hostage back.
And your question is?
My question is, so where is the empathy? So when you said that you were able to work a lot with empathy, so when did it break? When the flow of empathy broke?
I don't think the flow of empathy broke, but I think we are facing a challenge, a different challenge after the 7th of October is how can you fight the Hamas without becoming the Hamas? It's a challenge because after people saw these atrocities of the 7th of October, there's a lot of work to be done to regain your confidence in human kindness, in human nature, in the possibility of people to do good to each other. This is what we are trying to do in our country. And regarding the demonstrations, there's many kinds of demonstrations, and I'm quite sure that we are also going to face a new kind of demonstrations, thinking about what is happening in Israel right now, the last 2 or 3 days. It's not the end of this story, so let's wait and see.
Okay, last question. Yeah, I know you want to end it here. Last one.
Thank you. How can we actually teach empathy to the next generation? What can be done to build that bridge on both sides, Palestinian versus Israeli and Israeli versus Palestinian, in the way that the new generation, the one that will be leading the countries, I don't know, in the future, what can we actually do?
It's a question, it's a question, can you teach empathy? Some people believe that it's not teachable, that you're either born with it or not, but from my experience, it's not like it. I think, I'll give you an example, an exercise we do in class. I ask my students, think of a person that really annoyed you, this year. It can be a sister, a mother, an ex-boyfriend, a boss, and please tell your classmates about this incident. And then they start telling their story. Their faces are red. They are completely they are full of justice. They are right. They are righteous. And then I stop them and I tell them, okay, now tell the story from the other person's angle. Your boss, your ex-boyfriend, your sister. What would he say if he was in the room? And then after they do it orally, I ask them, it's called the empathy challenge. And the exercise goes like this. You have 15 lines for each version. 15 lines for your own version and 50 lines for the other person version of the truth, of the conflict. Now, if you would read both texts in class, and we would not be able, the class, to tell who are you more empathetic to, you win. And it's amazing to see it. It's amazing because people find it hard at the beginning, but then they can actually make this effort. They have to make it because this is the exercise. And slowly, slowly, they open up to the possibility that maybe they are wrong. And maybe there's another way to think about this. I think this is the beauty of literature, the beauty of art happening around us in this most beautiful performance. And I strongly see it happening again and again and again in every class I teach, in every audience I meet. People are capable of empathy. You just have to invite them to be empathetic, and you have to insist on them being empathetic. So, yes, we'll keep on doing it, and hopefully making a difference and influencing.
Well, that was a great answer also for ISPI, the international think tank. But just imagine that this empathy exercise would be done to solve also problems and conflicts. It could give results. We'll apply. Yes, that is. Well, I think our time is up, and now whoever is interested in buying the book, please, and Eshkol, he will be here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That was a real dialogue. A real dialogue.
Well,
It's made such a difference without stopping.
without you, of course. It's not always like an abortion.
It's like a real conversation. Such beautiful questions also. Really deep, really deep. And you read the Dialogo and it was helpful.
No, and this helped.